Welcome in. It is day 182, and you're speaking to the Meeples Champion. And today we're going to be going over a game that I bought many years ago. It's on the easier side, and it's definitely one of those games that I just haven't gotten to the table because there's so many better games I'd rather spend my time on. That being said, I've held on to it because it's not a bad game, and I really was looking forward to the day where I'd have kids and they'd start to get to learn games, and I felt this would be a great first, maybe, 1A, 1B section for learning. The game is called Palenque. Now, I have, I believe, the first edition of the game. I have seen boxes recently in stores again. Looks like they might have put a second edition out of this game. I don't know if they made any rule changes, but they definitely have a much nicer looking box. The idea being, you're essentially building on a temple, and you all have your markers, and you start on a space on the board. And when it's your turn, you draw a card, it adds to your hand, and then you choose a card to play. The card is going to have a symbol representing certain places on the board. Now, you get to choose how you want to spend action points for your turn. Now, there's a lot of options here. You can choose to spend action points so that you take any two markers on the board and literally flip them. So it could be you and an opponent, or it could be two random opponents. You can choose to take one of your markers and to move it a spot. You can choose to add a new marker, but if you do this, it has to be either A, adjacent to one of your current markers, and it's in a spot that matches the location style, the type, the topography of the card you played, or you can play it into a brand new spot as long as it's the same topography, or you can move yourself into a new spot that is not the same topography. Or after you've done the first placement, you can place a second one. And then on top of that, you also have two temples themselves that you can add to the board. And this counts as placing one of your markers. So you do this, you have 4 sections of cards that have been shuffled, each with a scoring marker placed inside of them. And when the scoring marker comes up, you score based on what everybody has put out there for their pieces, based on groupings together, chains, stuff like that. It's pretty simple. There's not a lot of overthinking in this game. I think that it has a lot of option, but you really don't need to overthink it. But there's definitely some game here enough that I said, hey, I could see this being fun for like a kid. And I think it'd be a great intro game because it does have you having to really think about options for your turn. It may not be a game that's very difficult options, but there are options. And I like that. But why don't we just jump into the game, talk our 7 categories, and see if this one really lands for us. Your art. So for me, this box is not a landing. And I can tell from the new box, it's not massively better, but it's definitely at least a level higher. The box to me would not grab my attention in the store today. I honestly don't remember if I got this as a gift, if I bought it myself. I have no idea how I came across getting this game. Uh, but it definitely was put in my collection early on when I still only had like 20 or 30 games. So I can tell you that if it was something I bought, it was probably just a interest in a game nobody else owned at the time. That being said, I don't think that the box is great, and I feel that the pieces inside are not much better. They're not bad, they're just not artistically grabbing me. It's gotta be a thumbs down. Your components. The components are fine. The cards are fine. You have your markers, which are in little wooden markers. You've got little plastic temples for if you want to place those out. Everything seems to be of good quality, so no complaints. Thumbs up. Your price. Thankfully, a game like this is not overpriced. This was only about $40 at the time. I would guess it's still in that range today, maybe a little bit lower. I think for the price you're paying, you're getting an acceptable game. It's definitely got game there. It's just about making sure that you realize this is for starters or for younger kids, I feel. So, with that being known, I do think it's worth its price. It's a thumbs up. Your difficulty. So again, it's kind of hard to compare this to much. I guess the best one to bring in would be Bon, where Bon has the scoring markers and you're slowly trying to get your city, so that in comparison to that game, same concept of, well, you're slowly getting things on the board. every quarter of the game, there's going to be an eventual scoring time, and then you're going to look at what you've already done and try to use that to figure out the points. So you might have a really good long-term plan, and it looks like you're falling apart because unfortunately it was a couple early scoring markers in the rounds and you weren't ready yet. But in that second half of the game, your scoring markers hit huge because you complete what you were going for. So I think that's a good comparable. And with that being compared for this, I think for a beginner, it's great. And for a kid, it's great. I think for an expert, it's not one that's going to really hit for most of them. And for an experienced, it's not going to hit for the majority of them either. But that being said, you're still talking about 50%. That's enough for me to give it a thumbs up. Your replayability, I've only ever played the game the one time. I didn't replay it that day. I wasn't grabbed enough to want to pull it out again since. But I also was learning lots of games at the time. And I feel like when I look back, even though my collection wasn't big then, my friends' collections were growing too. And we were, instead of a group of 5 like I have right now, I was in a group of like 14 at the time. So we had a lot of games, despite nobody having a huge collection. Together, we had a pretty good supply. So it was kind of hard to want to get this to the table very often because we had other options. And on top of that, we also had the idea of the game just wasn't really for our age and our level. We were we were just a little above beginners. We were on our way to experienced, but I would say we were like top level beginners. And I think this is really intended more for the beginners and the kids. So the replayability might have been there for them. That being said, I didn't see it, so I have to give it a thumbs down on the replayability. Your keys to victory. Definitely, there's a lot of option in this game, and that's a big deal. You need option. The ability to choose how you're using that card, for placing out additional, for moving where you are, for flipping and messing with other people's control. It's really cool. It gives you a lot of option there to go in and say, I know what is working for me, or I know I can't catch them, but I can screw with them and cause them to have to mess with each other. I like that. I'm going to give it a thumbs up. Unique. I already compared this to the game Bond. There's a lot of other games that I feel this could be compared to. Chinatown definitely has a little bit of aspect to that. The Foundations of Rome, again, bumps up a little against that. I don't think this is unique. It's got to be a thumbs down. Overall, I think if you've got a young kid or just getting into some of the, next level board games type people, this would be a nice little gift. But I wouldn't go out and make the effort to buy it for myself. And I think this is one that doesn't need to be played. But if you so happen to like it or you're into that style, that's cool. Give it a try. Do whatever fits for you. Well, it has been day 182, and we've been speaking about the game Palenque. And you've been speaking to the Meeples Champion. Like, share, subscribe, and check down below in the description. I'll be adding an Amazon link in case you want to get this game for your collection. Until next time, I'll talk to you tomorrow.